Hello, and welcome to the first ever REEEsponse video. And this is going to be in response to the Washington Post article regarding Tucker Carlson. You may have heard recently Tucker Carlson is in a little bit of hot water over some comments that he made several years ago, a decade or even more back, on some radio show about misogyny and how women are primitive beings and some other strange comments like that. But essentially what you have now is the reaction to those comments. Those comments were thrown out into the wild, kind of like bits of flesh into piranha-infested waters, and now we see the piranhas coming to feast. Tucker Carlson needs to go now. Fox News is the most watched cable network in the United States. Breitbart News is the 134th most popular news site on the internet, and has become notorious as a platform for the alt-right. Ooh, we're already using big scary words like the alt-right. You're going to notice in this article what I already did is I took the liberty of going through and highlighting all of the emotionally triggering words, the buzzwords that they need to throw in to kind of get your anger level up. Because that's really all these purple words are, is that when you come across those, it's like a landmine in the article. So you read it and you're like, defended pedophilia, sexual relationships, child rapist. It's supposed to, like amp you up and get you angry, because that's all this is. It's outrage porn. So with that being said, let's continue. Yet Breitbart seems to have higher standards than Fox News. After the far-right provocateur Milo Yiannopoulos defended pedophilia, specifically sexual relationships between adult men and 13-year-old boys whose organs are mature, he was forced to resign as a Breitbart editor. Tucker Carlson, by contrast, has not even been publicly reprimanded by his superiors at Fox News after the liberal watchdog group Media Matters for America unearthed his vocal support for a child rapist, among many other sick statements he made between 2006 and 2011 during conversations with a radio shock jock who calls himself Bubba the Love Sponge. Bubba, little did you know that long into the future you'd be dooming Tucker Carlson to a life of defending himself from the mob. So, I find it interesting that before they even get into what Tucker Carlson said. Notice they didn't even say, quote, what he said. They go immediately into bringing up Breitbart and Milo Yiannopoulos and the alt-right, because this is what they're trying to do. They're trying to associate even the most mainstream right-wing personalities like Tucker Carlson, and they're trying to associate him with being extreme, alt-right. That kind of stuff, like he's so extreme he should have a Monster sponsorship or something and just have Monster stickers all over his desk at work. It's pretty pathetic. So I'm still curious. I don't even know what he said. Maybe they'll say it in the next paragraph. Carlson defended Warren Jeffs, a polygamist cult leader. Ooh, man, we're getting some polygamy and cult leading in here now. He's already all over the place. Who is now serving a life sentence for child rape. Oh, there's rape again. This is like, the third or fourth mention of rape already? Carlson called the criminal charges bullshit and said that arranging a marriage between a 16-year-old and a 27-year-old is not the same as pulling a stranger off the street and raping her. Is that false? I'm not sure. They don't have any, comebacks to this statement. They're just kind of putting it out there, I guess. The case he was referring to actually involved a 14-year-old girl married by Jeffs to a 19-year-old cousin over her objections. So he had it factually wrong in the first place. So maybe we can write that off as him not even knowing what he's talking about. Carlson explained, quote, the rapist, in this case, has made a lifelong commitment to live and take care of the person, so it's a little different. Wow, that is super controversial statement. That prompted the co-host to call Carlson, quote, twisted and, quote, demented. I like how those two words by themselves are just in quotes. I think that's kind of funny how they just pick those two words out. Oh, twisted, demented. These are great descriptors for Tucker Carlson that we want to use. If you're not up to the moral standards of Bubba the Love Sponge, dot 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 exclamation point. Is that actual real grammar? I don't know if that's supposed to be in there, but anyway. So the few paragraphs in here, we can already see that they're trying to not only associate Tucker Carlson with the alt-right, but they're trying to associate him with rape. I mean, rapist. They use the word rape in sexual relationships in here like 6 times in the first 3 paragraphs. So they're trying to think of what's the worst thing that you can imagine someone doing to somebody else. Well, probably rape is up there. So we're just going to go ahead and assume that one of the most popular television hosts on TV is definitely in favor of rape, because that's definitely a reasonable thing to assume about somebody. Now, if we asked Tucker Carlson right now, hey, Tucker, do you like rape? He'd probably say, no, that's absurd. I don't like rape, or something along those lines. But, there's no leeway. There's no... It's absolutism. Okay, this is what we're seeing with this article is just another example of absolutism. If you even suggest the possibility, that you're not 100% against rape, well then, clearly you're for rape. You love rape. Continuing on. During other interviews on the same show, Carlson used the C word. Oh no, we've already been shown that the left definitely does care about using the C word. That's a joke, by the way. To refer to the daughter of Martha Stewart, called Ariana Huffington a pig, and said, women are extremely primitive beings who just need to be quiet and kind of do what you're told. Apparently, the C word is a common part of Carlson's vocabulary. Former Salon editor-in-chief Joan Walsh writes that he once used it when speaking out about her to a salon intern. Wow, so he used it once. Clearly, it's a common part of his vocabulary, because he said it twice over the span of 10 years. This is just the kind of logic that's present in these authors' minds. Or yes, not present, because there is really no logic involved here. And you notice what they're doing here is they're kind of... They want to make this... It's like compounding interest, right? You put some money in the bank, it gains a little bit of interest, it becomes bigger, and then you gain interest on that total plus interest. It's the same exact concept with this. So they're going to ding Tucker Carlson every single time that he does one thing incorrectly, and then they're just going to build this list up over time of all these different things. So now we're talking about how he used the C word to refer to the daughter of Martha Stewart, and he called Ariana Huffington a pig. What does that have to do with these recordings that came out from the Bubba the Love Sponge show? Well, the answer is nothing. But I want to remind you, hey, remember? Tucker Carlson also said this really bad thing that you should be triggered by. He called a woman a pig, just like Donald Trump. So again, they're trying to ram this rage medicine into your head. Well, not your head, because you're one of my viewers and you're intelligent and you don't fall for this kind of stuff. But the people who do read this, the kind of people who write this, they love in reading this article. They see the headline, Tucker Carlson needs to go now, and they know. It's like getting it's like completing a transaction with your drug dealer. Now that you have that little bag of heroin in your hand, you're going to inject that, and it's going to feel so good. Oh, I'm going to read this article. It's going to feel so good when they talk about rape and Tucker calling people the C word and how he's so misogynistic. Oh, it's going to feel so good. So that's what this is. It's, like I said, it's rage porn. So let's continue. Caught on tape saying reprehensible things, Carlson was typically and totally unapologetic. Quote, Media Matters caught me saying something naughty on a radio show more than a decade ago, he said, as if he had been belching in public. Then, like so many other right-wingers, including, of course, President Trump, because you have to refer back to President Trump any possible chance you can, Carlson refused to accept any responsibility or apologize for his conduct. So I think that's interesting that... they expected him to apologize, because this is the pattern that everyone has followed up until now. And Carlson is breaking this pattern. The dominoes stop at Tucker Carlson, okay? Because every other loser who gets caught up in some retarded accusation about something they did 20 years in the past, up until now, they've always said, oh, I'm sorry, please forgive me. And Tucker Carlson goes over this in his monologue from the March 11th show. I recommend you guys watch that. Basically, he just kind of gives a giant middle finger to these people who are trying to take him down and saying that he's not going to apologize. He's not going to apologize. He's not going to bow down to the mob. Carlson refused to accept any responsibility or apologize for his conduct. Instead, he portrayed himself as the victim. Precisely what the right so often accuses the left of doing. Oh, we got you now. Gotcha. Washington Post with that sick gotcha journalism. Carlson complained that he was being chased by a liberal mob and cast himself as a First Amendment hero. It seems he and his Fox News colleagues uphold the right to express independent thoughts, defying the left's demand for total conformity. Now, it's interesting here that they bring up the fact that Carlson complains that he's being chased by a mob, but they don't mention the fact that an actual mob tried to break into his house and harass his family. It's almost like they have some ulterior motives for leaving out those facts. I don't know. We'll just carry on here and hope this starts to make sense. Even as Carlson was delivering this defiant statement on Monday's Tucker Carlson Tonight, Media Matters for America was releasing more examples of Carlson's so-called independent thought. Quote, Carlson called Iraqis semi-illiterate primitive monkeys and said Afghanistan is never going to be a civilized country because the people aren't civilized. Now, let's back up to the beginning of that sentence. Even as Carlson was delivering this defiant statement that I just talked to you about on Monday's Tucker Carlson Tonight, look at how they frame that. They frame it as Tucker being defiant. The author is assuming a position of authority over Tucker, or at least she's assuming that the outrage, the source of the outrage, is claiming authority over Tucker. Like you need to respond to the outrage mob because, well, you know what they say goes. They are the moral authority over everyone. So you can tell the point of their kind of frame, their mental frame when they're coming at this is, you better bow down and answer to us. If you don't, it's considered being defiant. When, in reality, Tucker's not being defiant at all. He's like one of the most popular television shows on TV. He has the most viewership. I think Hannity is higher than him. And the only other person that has more viewers than him is Rachel Maddow. So you're disagreeing here with the majority of the viewers of cable news. So he's not being defiant. You think you have like some kind of majority. You know, this is that Twitter bubble effect where all these journalists think that everyone on the planet loves intersectionality and they're all for diversity and they're all progressives. But when they come outside of the sphere, this is one of those things that makes it super obvious that they are in a bubble, because this is one of the dumbest things in this entire article is that Tucker Carlson is defiant. No, I'm pretty sure his show yesterday had like record-setting viewership. So that's not defiance, okay? You are, if anything, being defiant against the norm, which is, like you said, independent thought, which is all he's trying to do. Also, I want to point out that when they quoted his apology, quote-unquote apology, up here, they're talking about how he wants to portray himself as a victim. They refused to include, look right here, they quoted as tiny shaving of his apology, and they left out the part where he said, if you disagree, you're free to come on my show and talk about it. Okay, because they don't want you to know that he actually is open-minded and he is an independent thinker, and he has a lot of progressives and leftists on his show all the time. They don't want you to know that. They just want to, again, they want to silo your brain into thinking that he's just a rapist, alt-right, Nazi, white supremacist. Okay? So a couple points I just wanted to bring up there. He also said that he had zero sympathy for Iraqis because they don't use toilet paper or forks, and that the war could turn around if somehow the Iraqis decided to behave like human beings. So yeah, we're talking about the same people who like stone gays for just being gay. So I'm sure the people writing this article have some disagreements with the Iraqis, and in the right context would say something similar. Oh, and Carlson also disparaged President Barack Obama in a racist fashion. Of course, we gotta have to get the racism in there too. Quote, everybody knows that Barack Obama would still be in the state senate in Illinois if he were white. Also, what is a racist fashion? What does that even mean? A racist fashion? It's either racist or it's not. Now, this statement isn't even racist. It's just an observation, a simple fact. It's not Tucker's judgment against black people at all. There's nothing you can get from this one sentence that tells you that Tucker hates black people, that he thinks of them any differently. He's simply pointing out the fact that because Barack Obama was black, he had increased popularity, which is something that I think almost everyone would agree with. But of course, they're going to use any chance that any mention of race, they're going to use that to just claim racism. It doesn't matter if it's racism at all. Just the fact that you mention race means it's racism. He said that everyone's embarrassed to be a white man, even though, quote, white men deserve credit for, quote, creating civilization and stuff, which is pretty much largely true, and called efforts to increase diversity in radio programming, quote, worse than Jim Crow. Sigh, there's plenty of homophobia too. I had an issue trying to read this the first time I went through this article because I don't think the last time I saw people writing like emotes or actions in their sentences was like emotional 15-year-old Tumblr bloggers. But here we have a Washington Post author actually writing in the article, sigh, comma, there's plenty of homophobia too. There's plenty of homophobia too. So yeah, we got now we got racism and homophobia, alt-right, rapist. Did I miss anything? The list is adding up. I mean, you know, reprehensible, misogynist, of course. Is there any odious ism that Carlson is not guilty of? Wow, well, this oddly enough, the author read my mind. I was just thinking to myself that same question. Even by Fox News' low standards, well, they have like the highest viewership out of all the other channels, so I'm guessing that their standards are fairly high. This is appalling stuff. Oh, appalling. I'm sure you're so outraged. Carlson's racist, misogynistic, and Islamophobic. Wow, we just went for the triple right there. Rants were revealed shortly after his fellow Fox News host, Jeanine Pirro, delivered an anti-Muslim. Man, we just made it up. We just stole home with that one. Commentary on her show, claiming that Representative Ilhan Omar is acting antithetical to the United States Constitution because she wears a hijab. Fox News rebuked Pirro for this bigoted statement. Now, I'm beginning to think, and I'm encountering this in real life too as I go to protests and talk to people. Nobody knows what the word bigoted means. Yeah, it's kind of a big problem on the left. They don't even understand what bigot means, but they always pair it with it's like French fries, you know, to a hamburger or a hot dog. It's kind of always there. You never really think about it. They just throw out racist and bigot at the same time when they clearly have no idea what it means. Because bigot simply means that you're closed off to someone else's opinion that's different than yours. That's all. It means that you're shut off to the opinions of others. Okay? So let's read this sentence again and see if we can sense any bigotry in here. This is Jeanine Pirro's statement that she was rebuked for. Quote, antithetical, Ilhan Omar is, quote, antithetical to the United States Constitution because she wears a hijab. Now, is there anything in this sentence that would indicate that Jeanine Pirro is closed off to the opinions of Ilhan Omar, acting antithetical to the United States Constitution. No, there's nothing in there that would indicate that Jeanine Pirro is shut off to her opinions. So again, it's not a bigoted statement, but they love using that word, and it's like, this is like a job resume for a leftist. Okay, so the idea is when you submit a resume, you want to throw a bunch of buzzwords in there to get through the computer that's going to analyze your document and find the words that it's looking for to match the job description. It's a way of filtering out people who are fit for the job, right? By determining whether or not they have experience with certain subjects. This is the same thing with quote-unquote journalism or activist journalism. All these highlighted words are essentially the key trigger words that's going to push up her status as a leftist progressive writer or author. Because that's all these words are. They're empty, meaningless, but they're trigger words for the reader. It remains to be seen whether Fox News will even give Carlson a slap on the wrist. He is, after all, the host of a highly rated nightly show, not a weekly show like Pirro's, and thus is much more financially valuable. Fox News, Carlson says, is behind us. Carlson's defenders point out that his conversations with Bubba the Love Sponge occurred years ago and not on Fox News. But he defended statutory rape. Oh, here we go. The laundry list continues. Female teachers having sex with underage boys as recently as a 2015 podcast. And on his Fox News show, Carlson regularly rages against immigration and diversity. He has different opinions than us on immigration and diversity. Get him! So this is the laundry list phenomena continuing here. You see with defended statutory rape. I think this is hilarious because just this morning I made a Twitter tweet, post, whatever you want to call it, whatever the whippersnappers do these days, about how the poor bastard who has to read through hundreds of hours or hundreds of words worth of articles of Tucker Carlson, hundreds of hours worth of his footage and radio show commentary all the way back to 2016. They're listening to this for days and days and weeks and months on end just to find anything like this. This is it. This is the end result. They dig the holes. And I actually, in my journalistic integrity, I tried to search for the process of this, and I was able to locate it right here. I found a picture. This is the Kola super deep borehole, the deepest hole on Earth. This is where they got all this information from Tucker Carlson, okay? And it looks a little bit small from this perspective, but if you look at all the little structures right here, this is where all of the armies of Media Matters live and sustain themselves as they dig this hole to try and search for dirt on Donald Trump and Tucker Carlson and anyone who is affiliated with Tucker Carlson or Donald Trump or anyone on the right who pushes right-wing narratives. I thought that was interesting. I just wanted to point that out. So let's carry on here. We're almost through. In December, he said that immigration, quote, makes our own country poorer and dirtier. That's taken incredibly out of context, and that's not what he said. I recommend you watch that for yourself. White supremacists, oh, we got to throw that buzzword in there again, have become avid fans of Carlson. The white supremacist website Daily Stormer, not the anything but the Daily Stormer, called him, quote, literally our greatest ally. It is difficult to believe that any television network would give Carlson a forum to spew his bile, or that any reputable company would underwrite it. Megyn Kelly was fired from NBC for only one offense, defending blackface Halloween costumes, and, unlike Carlson, she apologized. Yeah, because she didn't have a spine. It is high time for both advertisers and network bosses, or NBC Forster, from Rupert Murdoch on down, to search their souls about their complicity in injecting this poison into the body politic. Well, first of all, Tucker didn't inject this into the body politic. The guys who were digging that giant hole injected this into the body politic, okay? They made this toxic by acting like something that someone says 10 years ago is relevant in any fashion at all. And secondly, you're angry because Fox News doesn't behave like every other company on the planet who fires people for offending people. That's the gist. That's the core of your argument, is that Rupert Murdoch operates his business in a different manner than NBC. That is a pretty trash argument. Now, they conclude by saying Carlson has a right to say whatever he wants. Well, I'm glad you acknowledge that. But he doesn't have a right to say it on the most watched cable channel in the country. He needs to go now. Carlson has a right to say whatever he wants. See, they had to throw that in right at the end because they don't actually believe that. They don't think that he should be able to say whatever he wants. This article wouldn't be in existence if they actually thought that was the case. And then they go on to say, but he doesn't have a right to say it on the most watched cable channel in the country. Why doesn't he not have the right to do that? Didn't he earn that right by becoming the most popular? One of the reasons why the channel is the most watched cable channel in the country is because he has good content, because people want to watch him. And because he says different ideas than you want to remove his ability to reach his audience. This is a continuation of the leftist attempts to kind of silence right ideas. You know, everyone who watches my channel is familiar with this. We just watched the CEO of Twitter go on Joe Rogan and get grilled by Tim Pool about this very topic, and that is the censorship of the right. Now, why do they make articles like this filled with all of these pink words? Notice for all of these pink words, there's no statistics, there's no facts. You know, like I talk about when they quote Tucker, they leave out the part where he says that he wants people on a show to challenge him. They fail to talk about how he actually had a real mob at his house. They leave out all these facts and they pretend like they're journalists when they say Carlson has a right to say whatever he wants. But we all know that it's just rage fodder. They throw this out into the wild and the piranhas go mad. They throw this little chunk of flesh into the river and everyone just eats it up. They know they will too. But now the defiant majority, the people who actually watch Tucker Carlson, they don't agree with anything in this article. They don't live in that Twitter bubble, that social media bubble, that progressive journalist bubble. So they're looking at this and they're thinking, this is a joke. They think this actually matters, that Tucker Carlson said something 10 years ago. Oh, by the way, when he was working for not Fox News, they also didn't mention who he was working for in here, which is another interesting tidbit that they leave out. The absence of information is actually what really tells the story in this article. It's not what they tell you. You have to look at the absence of information. That's where the real story is in this fantastic rage bait from the Washington Post. Now, if you guys are curious and you would like to know more about the strategy being implemented here by the left and by Media Matters, you can go and find this beautiful manual online. This is the Media Matters, Democracy Matters, Strategic Plan for Action, Private and Confidential. This was leaked. David Brock Confidential Memo on Fighting Trump. So this was leaked from the Washington Free Beacon in 2017. It just kind of highlights, everything, the goal, what is Media Matters, what their goals are, and they stay right in here. I want to point out just a couple quick things before we wrap up here. They say right here, Trump has the legal authority, but we have the moral authority and the moral responsibility to oppose him. Remember earlier in the video I said they think they have the moral authority? That's why Tucker is quote-unquote defiant. So I want to point that out. And also, if you scroll down, you can see right here, Media Matters. We will fully adapt to the new reality, and we will win. I'm just imagining, like, German propaganda posters in the background of the boardroom when this is being read. Here's how. In the next 4 years, Media Matters will continue its core mission of disarming right-wing misinformation. while leading the fight against the next generation of conservative disinformation. The proliferation of fake news and propaganda now threatening this country's information ecosystem. Here's what success looks like. Serial misinformers and right-wing propagandists inhabiting everything from social media to the highest levels of the government will be exposed, discredited. Internet and social media platforms like Google and Facebook will no longer uncritically and without consequence host and enrich fake news sites and propagandists. And how are they going to do that? By submitting, reports, threats to, remove advertisers, etc., etc. And finally, toxic alt-right social media fueled harassment campaigns that silence dissent and poison our national discourse will be punished and halted. This is the playbook from Media Matters, folks. This is you're seeing their plan in action. And I recommend doing a little Google search for this so you can read through it yourself and see exactly where they're going, what they're doing, and see the exact playbook that they're using here. And that playbook is dig up as much information as you can from the whole and then use that against them to discredit them. Notice there's nothing in here about we will debate their ideas and we will prove ours are superior through logic and rationality. No. They're going to win politically by discrediting and exposing anyone who supports right-wing ideas. I hope you guys enjoyed this REEEsponse. I'll be coming out with a lot more of these as the rage ramps up towards the 2020 elections. If you enjoyed the analysis, give the video a like, thumbs up, subscribe, all that good stuff. Go ahead and give it a share. Let's get this going. And follow me on Twitter if you want, twitter.com/TheWeeklyNarrative. Jeremy from The Weekly Narrative. I'm out of here.